Grand Rising, everybody. Natalie and
Pam. Good morning.
oh, there's a little bit of a delay there, but that's okay. Um,
It's
uh,
early. I'm
it
trying.
is early. We're all trying for us. Okay, for us, pour me. Uh, oh, what is that song? Pour me another cup of coffee.
Right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Love my coffee. I have to have it in the morning. Everybody knows that. Um, so awesome. We are so ecstatic and excited that you joined us on our twin flame journey last time. And trust me, there's so much more to talk about when it comes to twin flame.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, the topic is so important that people reached out
Mm,
and
awesome.
wanted to know.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, they wanted to know we're going to do the next episode. And I think that's kind of the topic we're going to do today, which is it could be part of the twin flame story, but not necessarily, but could be. And that's the sacred feminine and masculine, which I've done many a times on my older podcast. But the thing that's different is I didn't have the twin flame story. Number one. Number two, I didn't have another person with me on here to talk about it, so I only had my language. So we will start by I believe just, Pam, if you wanna just kind of tell us what the sacred feminine masculine means to you, like, what exactly is it? Your definition, and then why is it important to even understand these particular concepts, which I know they're floating around everywhere, but from your perspective, um, tell us.
Okay. Sure. From my perspective, so feminine and masculine, right? The two kind of energies, regardless of gender. And just say that right now. It's not about you and your body. Like it's more of these energies that we embody. Um, so the feminine masculine representing darkness and light, subconscious and unconscious, the masculine being this kind of protector, caregiver. I mean, not so much a caregiver, that would be more feminine, but he provides, right? So that the feminine can be a caregiving, naturally nurturing, creative, intuitive energy. Um, Understanding of like, and then it's about seeing how we embody that through a healed kind of aspect. So a wounded, obviously masculine, and a wounded feminine are very much more toxic. Feminine can be very manipulative, while the masculine can be very controlling, and kind of greed runs through both of them, and power and whatnot. Um, so when you're able to work through that and rise into like this more sacred, aligned, healing energy, then it's just, yeah, healthier. Like there's no right, there's no lashing out because of like ego. There's no trying to control and manipulate other people to get what you want. It's more about just being true to who you are so that you can create and be nurturing, or feel nurtured by others. um I don't know if that's a great explanation or not, but it's kind of
No, it's good, but you keep saying nurturing, so I'm wondering if your sacred feminine energy needs some love and care.
right. I've been sick to take care of myself. Right. And
Yeah,
yeah, as a mom, I'm always taking care of my babies. So for me, it is very much just nurturing, kind of keeps the home going, keeps everybody and being chaotic. So I think that's why I think of like nurturing when it comes to like kiddos or whatnot, people that need that help.
absolutely. Um, yeah, and I think it's a great definition. I think it's, like you said, the conscious, the unconscious, it's the light, the dark, the moon, the sun, it's the
Mhm.
duality that's experienced within each individual. And it's the push and the pull, the up and the down,
Yeah.
and it's the ability to find balance within those systems. So, the balance is where it's important, and I think it's probably the hardest thing to accomplish, and I know someone said, "Oh, I don't like the word balance." I mean, I don't know that it is like a balance beam, but we're kind of ebb and flowing between the 2 energies constantly, and trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to, maneuver through it. And I think it's funny because I read people on Facebook. Sometimes I'm reading their post, and I try to explain the sacred feminine and masculine, as I think people don't really get what they're talking about sometimes. And I think they're just kind of throwing concepts out there, and they're just because they hear it from other people, right? And they're like, "Ah, that's toxic masculine, that's toxic feminine." And I'm like,
Yeah.
and they say it based on, like you said, gender.
Yeah.
So if a woman is being controlling, that's toxic feminine. I'm like, that's not toxic feminine energy. And I try to tell them that because I'm like, I want people to understand what these energies mean and how you balance them out. And I kind of like the idea of saying wounded. I think that would be a better way. And then out of that wound, maybe things become very toxic. And that's true. I mean, even in
Yeah.
nature, right? If you have a cut that you don't take care of and if it's open and it doesn't heal properly, it does get toxic for your body. So with the sacred feminine and masculine, it can become toxic. Good morning. Good morning, Rockwiller. How are you? So to have people understand truly what we mean when we say sacred and feminine and masculine as not gender, but as an energy potential that exists within us, and we both have the polar, these opposites within us that we're constantly battling.
Mm.
Where the sacred feminine, um, you know I kinda got into a chat on Facebook with a person, and they got kinda mad, and then they're like, "Ah, get out of here, you toxic feminine person," and I was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
wow.
man, they're still not getting it." I was like, "I love you, it has nothing to do with that, there's no toxicity." And I actually was agreeing with what he was saying, but I think he was so enraged with fury about this term called toxic masculine that he couldn't even see that I was agreeing with him. So I was
Yeah.
like, never mind. You can't even see past your own fury to hear what I'm saying is, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. And then goes on to say, you're a toxic feminine energy. And I'm like, not really. That would actually still be toxic masculine.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he's just
Especially
projecting.
especially if we're like going to war, right? And battle. Um, which is funny. So to understand the energies, and if you understand them within yourself, then you can start to harmonize the energies within yourself as well. And, kind of the self-love, I think, comes from that as well.
Mm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So tell me what you think about that.
No, I agree. From my personal experience, I'm very much feminine, feminine, feminine. So I had to learn to like find the parts of me, right, that is the masculine energy where I can protect myself and I can provide for myself. Um and not have to, really worry so much. And it was like discovering this energy, recognizing its role and its purpose, and then like you said, it integrating, right, coming into balance. Didn't feel safe. I didn't feel protected. Um and so I had to do that role for myself. I had to provide that. So it is really important to try and sit with yourself and explore yourself and explore how your action states when you're doing it compared to when you're just being. Um, and I think the more that you do that, the more you discover the wounds around why maybe one is so dormant or why one energy is very much like intense all the time.
Yeah, I think I think for me it's like I'm very like, I have a lot of masculine energy. Never really understood what the healed masculine energy looked like internally for myself. Had no idea how
Mm,
to, um, heal that. And I think that was part of my journey, right? Because my all so I would say this with the listeners is we learn these patterns from our parents, right? Those are our first. We get to blame our parents for everything. Yes, no, just kidding. We're definitely not going to stay there forever, right? You're not going to blame your parents forever, or you will get stuck not moving forward. But we do learn from our parents first, and that would be the individuals, even if it wasn't parents, if you were adopted or even if you were a foster child, whatever, your story is, those individuals, even if it was another family member raising you, you learn from those individuals to
yeah,
begin with. Like those are the first people that we learn from. So in that programming that we learn when we're young, those are how we understand the sacred feminine and masculine. Now, we have throughout the time ascribed roles to these individuals. So with the man saying, "Hey, you're the protector, you're gonna, protect." And I think what ended up happening is that got over exaggerated.
yeah,
And it was like, well, men are just this way. And I'm like, no, they're not. And then it's like, well, women are just that way. No, they're not. We have it internally, but here's what happens. I think that when men assume their role in the masculine energy, which is the protector, and they do it from a healthy place, women will tend to feel more inclined to step into that creative, intuitive,
absolutely,
caregiving role. And I
absolutely,
think we're
because they feel
missing
safe.
that. Exactly, you feel
Mm,
safe, and I think we're totally missing that. We're missing the mark in the Western world with that at this point, and it's become a detriment to our society, in my personal opinion, where us women feel like we have to, at least from my perspective, we have to be our own protector,
mm,
and there's not really, I'm looking for men that are like, and I see I'm not saying there are not healthy men out there that are, assuming that role, but it is changing drastically in our society. And so it's kind of hard to let's see, why do women be masculine? I prefer feminine. Yeah, see, there you go. And I'm giving you a an explanation without even knowing your question. And that's why. Because there's so much wounded masculine energy that women don't feel safe.
yeah,
You have to understand we have gone through a lot, and I'm not saying men haven't. And I think where the disconnect has happened, and this is just one way, is that men were 100% cut off from their emotional state of being,
yeah,
and especially in the Western world. And that does not do any good for anybody because emotion is part of our human experience. And to cut that off is to say you're not human. And so we have a lot of these wounded men out there who are not as they're not stepping into the role of a healthy masculine energy. So that's why it's so important to understand the both, because men have feminine energy as well.
yeah,
And when they can heal that part of themselves, it's just think about a mother and a child, like a little boy and a mother. Like, the mother shows him nurturing, loving kindness, and shows him, but also shows him, like, you have to have a good heart. And then, then there's that masculine energy. If we go back to, like, ancient times where the father's like, "And here's how you go hunting, and here's how you do all these things." You know? Now it's like, I don't know what it is. I guess people are playing video games and they're hunting online and not really hunting game, But that was kinda like the rites of passage and the rituals and stuff.
mm,
So I think that that's why women can't. I feel, this is my perspective, I cannot settle into trusting a man to be a protector. I don't. And I haven't experienced it fully either. So I don't even think I've experienced a healthy masculine in my life ever. So I have to be my own protector. So then yes, I become more masculine because who's going to protect me and not harm me, and allow me the space to actually drop into my feminine sweet self. I can't. I don't have that opportunity to do it.
Mm,
because I'm not seeing these men show up the way that they should, just like women are not showing up the way that they should. And I don't know, maybe should is not the right word,
could the
but
potential.
honestly, yeah, so and I mean, tell me how you feel about that, Pam, like, what are your thoughts?
Um, I agree. I mean, it's such a tricky topic, and I think it definitely can trigger people who aren't familiar, don't fully understand.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
because again, it's energy, right, within a body, and we have
mhm,
both. So it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you're just going to have one more dominant energy than the other. Um, so yeah, I mean, when I think about, like you said, who raises you in your young environment and how you're conditioned by family and school and culture, and right, boys are told like you can't cry.
mhm,
Yeah, like, and so it's like, yeah, have these blocks right away to your emotions. And then girls are expected to do the cooking and the cleaning and to, play with baby dolls. So it's right from childhood. It's like, here's the roles, here's the, what you're supposed to do with that and how it's supposed to look and be. And then we grow up and realize, like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't want to follow this or do this or get stuck in this limited like space. Um, so yeah, I think the best thing in some instances is just to notice. Just notice. Like, don't act out, like, don't, you know what I mean, don't engage, but just notice how the feminine, the masculine are showing up. um I think that's helpful because we get kind of caught up in trying to like label everything, look at people, judge people. Everybody has their wounds and their, reasons for how they've grown into like who they become. And so it's like, just observe. I think that can help people in the moment of really recognizing maybe more of feminine and masculine and seeing how, okay, this is wounded, compared to like this is healthy.
mhm, mhm. Fathers, let's see what color. Fathers are not the same as mothers, though. No, they're not. And that's because men aren't husbands anymore. No, and the thing is like, again, it's an energy. I like what, Pam is saying. It's just an energy that exists within all of us. So we have both. And that's something that I want to land for people to really understand. And it's really important that men are able to feel the emotion so that they can understand the full experience of the feminine and have compassion for it and have this care for it to say, wow, yes, we may experience higher heightened emotions and higher emotions, which is true. That is a true thing because we do have hormonal states that are a lot more like the cycles of the moon, right? We're like the tides in the ocean. Like one day our tides might be calm and the next day we might be crashing into everything. So so
Yeah, pretty much. Men are like the
so
roller coaster, much more like technical and logical about the ups and the downs.
so but again, when a man understands emotion and is able to not cut that off, he
Yeah.
begins to at least understand a woman and understand what we are going to. Yeah, going through. We are simple idiots. Yeah, we are. We're simple yet complex, and that's the problem, right? We turn something simple into complexity and we're here. So we can't, here's the deal, we can't turn off the complexity that has already begun because now
Yeah.
we're having these very complex conversations to try to get back to the simplicity. So I mean, trust me, I say this all the time. I'm like, I'm simple yet complex. Okay. And I'm going to go off on a tangent just a little bit. And by that, I mean, when I order something at a restaurant, if I eat out, which is a rare occasion, I want simple. I'm like, please don't put all the sauces and please don't put all the salt and please don't. And that becomes complex. But really, I'm asking for simplicity, but it's
Mm,
complex, right? And I think that's the same thing that we're going through in society. We've overthought these things, but here's the deal, we have to now we have to talk about getting back to the basics because we have I feel what we have done is we have totally taken what was sacred to our individual experience, and we've sort of siloed the sacred feminine and masculine into gender roles
Yeah.
and then into, you know, man and woman. And then now it's become this war of men versus women, and it's not a war. The
Right.
reality is that the war's within. And I think that's what Pam trying to say too, that these energies live within us.
Yeah.
Um, I was raised in a home where my dad worked and my mom did not. She was more of a home wife mom. Yeah, and I think back in the day was common. I don't know how long ago that was. You wanna give a date? Or you don't wanna reveal your age? No, I'm just kidding. Well, because if you looked at the family structure and home ages ago, right, it was so different from what we
Yeah,
have today. But
absolutely.
we also didn't, I'm 43. Oh, okay, good. So we're the same age, 80s baby. Cheers to that. I unfortunately did not come from a home that was made up like that. So, you know, my perspective's gonna be a lot different. Um, what was your home environment like, Pam? Did you have your parents together? Was it a broken home or
My parents were together until I was 8 years old. They
uh,
divorced, yeah, during the 3rd grade, and then I
uh,
went and, I lived with my dad
wow.
pretty much, yeah, until I was, like, 12, and then the teen years happened, and I think I just cared more about friends, and I left, yeah, like right, shocker. But I left I left Rhode Island and went to Maine, because I felt like it was more it was such a different environment, and so I
Mm,
really chose based on that than my parents, because I wish I would have stayed with my daddy. Not gonna
aw,
lie. I would do it over if I could, because he
uh,
really has been the only masculine energy that, truly made me feel safe and protected.
aw,
And I think I've been looking for that
yeah.
kind of my whole life. And
Mm,
my ex-husband was very controlling and very uh very aggressive at times when that control and that power seemed to be threatened.
ah,
Um so I have not found a masculine really to make me feel safe. And
mm,
here I am
mm,
raising 3 boys and
ah,
trying to teach them, like,
huh?
it's okay to have emotions and feelings and, because their father, unfortunately, still will say those things about "man up" and "don't act like a girl," and it really bothers me.
Ah,
Yeah.
ah, ah. See?
Ugh,
Is it
yeah.
controlling or protecting? Um,
Right. But it's just what
it
he
was
learned, It's just what he learned from his parents and how
uh-huh.
it's been passed down.
But I think that's good to make a distinction between what is controlling and what is protecting, right?
Yeah.
Controlling is trying to exert some or coerce somebody into their own will, like manipulate, like you can't do this, you can't do that. It's not protecting.
Yeah, I wasn't
Protection,
allowed to do things. It wasn't.
exactly. That's manipulation and control.
Yeah,
Protection is if somebody comes to harm your family, you will do anything to protect them. You
yeah,
know, so it's like a do no harm, take no shit type of thing, and that's one of my favorite sayings in all the world. That is the best example of a healthy masculine. I will do no harm, but I am not gonna take shit. And I feel like that's a healthy masculine way of saying, I will protect what I need to, but I'm not gonna go out and actively harm anything. But
yeah,
if somebody comes at me, see, and this is my masculine talking, and I, you know, I do kung fu, you know that, and that's part of the kung fu way as well. Like it's not about going out and harm, and in fact, it's a great way to balance out your energy is kung fu because kung fu does sort of speak to the feminine and masculine energies. I mean, look at women of consciousness, Rockweller. There's a reason that we have the yin yang symbol, right? It's
yeah,
because there's this balance between the both feminine and masculine energy internally. And that's an individual journey that people have to go through. Now, it's because you talked about the complex complexity and the simplicity, and it has become so complex, but why? It's because society has forced, men and women into specific roles
Yeah.
that, yes, they're important. I'm not saying that these roles aren't important. If a man showed up totally masculine, like in a healthy masculine, that's sexy as hell. Women love men who show up that way. Trust me, and so we hear this where it's like, we naturally will fall into our feminine energy when we feel safe in a masculine energy. It's just a natural thing that happens for us. It doesn't have to be forced, right? And I think that that's what's happened is that, in the Western world specifically, we've come so far into these roles where it's like, oh, the woman stays home and the man goes to work. It's like, it's not that easy. That's not really how it works.
Mm.
These roles happened, right, over time because women felt safe to be the nurturer. They felt safe to have a lot of kids. They felt like the man was out there going and doing what he needed to do to actually provide and protect the family, not by force. You know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
work together, and then the two work together in harmony. But both had those things, and I can tell you right now, let's see, but men need a woman as much as women need men. And that's, we're not saying
Yeah.
that. We're not saying they don't. We're saying heal the internal masculine and feminine within yourself.
Yes.
Yes, harmony. And then there's this ebb and flow in harmony. There's this dude that I've been watching. I don't know how he just showed up on my Instagram. He seems like such a healthy masculine energy. Like, I feel safe around him, and I don't even know the guy. Yeah, he's showing up, and and I'm telling you, he's this big, he's like Khal Drogo. Do you know who that is?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you know, Aquaman?
Oh, yeah, because of my
Okay,
kid.
he's like that dude, right? He's like this
Yeah.
big, like, manly man where you're just like, "Oh, he's a big man," That's like, I feel good with that man. He feels like he's. And I'm not saying all men have to be that big to feel protected, but I'm just saying he shows up on my feed, right? And he's talking about what we're talking about from the man's perspective. And oh my God, you could tell this guy has done his work
Mm.
internally because he does talk about it he does talk, he says, women want to feel protected, not controlled, but protected. And
Right.
and you show them this loving kindness. So he has this gentleness about him, but you can tell that if anybody messed with his family, he ain't gonna take it. He's like,
Right. Absolutely not. And
but
that's
he's
what
not.
that energy is meant,
uh
like, yeah, to do and feel and be.
I'm gonna share that Instagram stuff with you, Pam, so you can see this guy. I'm like, we need to have him on our podcast because
Right?
I feel like he's a good example of a healthy masculine energy.
Yeah,
Um,
that's beautiful. And the same
it
thing
is.
though for masculine, like I even recently was thinking about this more, because I do a lot with plant medicines, and I was having an experience recently with ayahuasca, and there was these beautiful tapestries, and there's three of them, and so is the divine feminine and the divine masculine on the outside, and in the middle it was like them kind of merging or separating. And I just kind of got lost in these images, and I've really started thinking like, okay, I know what I need as a feminine from a masculine to feel safe, to feel protected, so this way I can show up and be intuitive and be creative. So what does a masculine need from like a healthy feminine? Was kind of where I started diving into that. And it led to some conversations with people that I know that are masculine and are doing the work. And for them, it was vulnerability, which made sense to me because it kept coming back to that, kind of nurturing space, like I was saying earlier. Because when you think about it, like you had said earlier too, that small boy where their mom took care of them, right? Their mom did everything. And I think a lot of wounded men then grow up and just expect that. And that's where women have been just forced into this role, especially looking back the last couple hundred years, where we
Mhm,
had no rights to
mhm,
jobs or creativity, to any kind of career aspect. So a lot of women were just like shunned. And so there is a need for the masculine to be able to come home and feel vulnerable and feel safe in that from the feminine,
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
are so they're carrying all the weight on their shoulders, right? They're the ones who have to go out and provide and protect. So
Mhm.
how do they decompress that stress if they
Mhm.
don't feel like they can be emotional, or they can show that vulnerability and softer side? So it
Yeah.
is a really, I think, eye-opening question when you start diving into, like, what is a healthy sacred feminine masculine, what is a wounded. And that's why I was saying, the more you can look at people, the more you can just observe and notice, I
Mhm.
think you kind of start getting answers to questions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Um, the government putting more women into the workforce just to collect more taxes. Yeah, I'm sure they are. But when we started to see the Western world, and so we could talk a lot about the industry, right? When women went to factories and stuff, a lot of it was because men were out to war and they
Yeah.
needed people to continue working in the economy. I mean, that's when we had the biggest wave
Mm.
of women get into the workforce, and I think they wanted to continue to work is what happened. They were like, "We
Right.
wanna work, why can't we continue to
They
work?" And,
found
the men came
passion
back
and
and said, "Go
purpose.
home now. Go home now," and they're like, "What? Work?"
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having women in the workforce. And here's the deal. I mean, it becomes this hard challenge thing because we went from this I don't even know if it's the right word, but we went from like this stay at home kind of scenario, farm land, big families to industry, right? The industrial world arose
Mm.
out of that. And once factories were made and technology was created and developed and all that kind of stuff, it did change the way that men and women sort of engaged in the world.
Yeah.
Right? We no longer have this, big farmland. You think about the family home and structure, it changed so much
Yeah, still changing
comparatively,
constantly.
and it's still changing, and
Yeah.
it's very expensive to have children now. You
Yep.
can nearly not afford having children, right? It's like, "What? I can't even afford to have children," because the way that we've shaped and molded society, is it's kind of a strange narrative, how we've shaped society. It's almost even though they're wanting to collect taxes, it's almost impossible for the both parents not to work at this point, especially if they want children.
Yeah.
Unless they're, Amish, right? Or, you know what I mean? Or Quakers or what are, the people that live off the land still, which is not even happening these days, right? In the Western world, that you absolutely have to have 2 incomes to survive even. Like, how
Yeah.
are you gonna get your food, right? We're not raising kids. Here's the deal, okay, and this will probably go to on a tangent, but I'm just gonna put this in there. We're raising kids to learn how to farm land on a computer
Yeah.
through games. They know how to, digitally be on a farm. So they get on their games and do that. So that's what we're teaching. We're not teaching them how to get out on the land and actually till the dirt, get their hands dirty, take care of the animals and all the things that they used to do. So we're living in a very different time. And I think it's going to be very important for those who are on the spiritual journey to understand how to navigate this spiritual journey of the sacred feminine masculine during these times, which is going to look very different from what it did. We're not going back.
No.
It's just we're not. Technology's already taken over. So it becomes like Pam was saying at the beginning, a very internal type of work that we need to do to heal, and
Mhm.
that's healing our internal sacred feminine and masculine that we all carry.
Yes.
And I think the roles right now that we're playing, um, I don't think they were an accident, basically,
No.
breaking up the family home. I mean, it's a complex issue. And like you said, we're simple, but we've made it so complex that move past the complexity of it. So now our brains are just constantly making it more complex. Right? It's like living systems theory, which I'm not going to say that I'm totally on board with, but tell me it's not it is. It's like living
Yeah,
systems, right? It's a complex problem
yeah.
that we're facing. Go ahead.
No, I
Jump in.
just think, as you're saying all that, it's again like the evolution of consciousness. It is
Mhm,
the
mhm,
energy of the feminine, the energy of the masculine, right? That was part of this oneness of the universe and still is, has its own desires to create, to manifest, to
mhm,
experience and come to know what it is, consciously awaken to itself. And we're in a time of that integration. And kind of going back to the twin flames from last week when we were talking about, the feminine and the masculine coming into union, that's what we're experiencing as a collective. So the divine feminine has been on, I think, a wave, riding out waves a lot longer. Um, I really feel like 2012, right? That whole Mayan calendar, end of the world, was the paradigm shift for the age of Aquarius, where a lot of these things really started hitting us hard as a collective. And the feminine kind of woke up first. And now, the last few years, the masculine is kind of going through his waves of awakening. And so it's meant to trigger us. It's meant to get us to question these things, to notice these things, to say it's not working. We have to fix it, change it, heal it. Um, and that's where we're coming into, is this harmony and this union. I don't know how long, the universe is going to let this game play out. It's got its own journey. But in the meantime, we can surrender or we can resist. And I'm kind of over resisting because it just persists. And then it gets harder and tougher. And the universe kicks your ass a little bit more for not giving in and listening and trusting and surrendering. Um, and so, like, yeah, it just, we've got to get outside of the idea of the gender equality rights and it being a man versus woman thing, because
mhm,
it's not. Inside our own body, we have these two energies that are Jekyll and Hyde, and we need to do the work and heal them and integrate them, and then live from that embodied, balanced place. And the more we
mhm.
can show up for ourselves first in that harmony, then it's going to show up for others, as within, so without, as above, so below. It's
Yeah.
just a complex concept, but at the basic, root of it is that core oneness. And we are so out of balance and out of harmony. And the universe is forcing us to realign.
Yep. I do like that. I like that. It's like consciousness is trying to remember itself, or it's working through us to identify or see itself for what it is, which
Yeah.
is like, and it is this like narrative of both, because even in nature, right, it's like that balance between the two, and there's this tiny balance that holds everything together. It's
Mm.
just I mean, one little thing can change the entire narrative, not just for humans but for the entire cosmos, right? It's just,
Yeah.
it's in everything. And there is this perfect balance that the universe kind of has to keep us alive even, right? It's like,
Mm.
think of all the things that go into keeping a human alive to begin with, which is pretty, I mean, amazing. And then there's like all these other life forms on this planet, but it goes beyond that, right? So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think, like you're saying, it's through us, which is cool. And this is a cool thing. And I think humans are not onto this yet. I think they're just too busy, caught up in this mechanistic, materialistic narrative, that they
Mm.
can't, they've lost sight of how cool it is to kind of be human.
Eh.
And we have this golden opportunity to just kind of do some cool shit. And that's kind of where I'm like, come on, people, we
Yeah.
have this opportunity. But I think it lies in the balance, like you said, in observing or recognizing. You've said that a couple of times, like, just be aware, just observe. and it's observing yourself in interactions, even observing your own biases about how a man or woman should show up in the world and thinking, wow, how am I showing up in the world through that narrative? Or, why is that triggering me? If I see this woman who I feel is quote unquote a toxic feminine energy, why is that triggering to me? How am I being toxic internally with my feminine energy? Because I'll say this, wounded feminine is like, don't take any days off. Don't There's no time to rest. There's no time to take care of myself. So, these men, like no one really, and I can't say no one, but I'd say the majority of people don't really understand that yes, there's a lot of pressure put on men in this way, right? And what gets put on these men? Go, 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 go. Don't stop. Don't take any rest.
Yeah.
This and that and the other. And it's like they're breaking their backs, right? With no rest. They don't even know what it's like to feel nurtured, I don't think. I don't know. I think some men probably maybe do, but mostly they don't. I mean, we live in the Western world. I always talk in behalf of the Western world because that's where I'm from. But for us, it's a work, work, work. I mean, we work Monday through Friday. I mean, the Ford model. I can't even believe we're still operating on the Ford model anymore. But Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
9 to 5.
It's crazy.
It,
Yeah,
it's
and you're lazy. You're lazy if you need rest.
that, and that's a toxic masculine structure, right? It's
Yeah.
it's very it's a wounded masculine, and then these men and women both are stuck into this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We need to
Um,
realize we're more like the seasons and get in tune with the seasons. Right now is the harvest in the West and like the
yeah.
Northern Hemisphere. And yeah, this is where you're kind of reaping what you sowed over the past year from the plants that the seeds that you planted and going into the winter soon. Like that's the time to go within and to kind of be more like um what is it? Like stillness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
introspection maybe?
Yeah, exactly. I just want to
Yeah.
say though, because I noticed really quick, he had made a
Mhm.
comment, or they made a comment about everyone is suffering somehow. And
Mhm.
really, like, I just guess, how much are we causing our own suffering though? Like the systems are keeping us, chained so that we are suffering from that aspect, the political or capitalism. But on the day to day, people are out there causing their own suffering because they're miserable and they're feeling negative, heavy energies that they can't transmute. And then they're going and projecting and spewing that to everybody else that they interact with. So we don't have to suffer. That's for sure.
Well, and I always go to Buddhism for this.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
watching
saying.
okay, so I'm gonna tell you, I always like to so I equate everything to, like, shows. So if you guys haven't watched this show, I was watching, Marco Polo. Right? And it's funny because they're the Mongols, and the Mongols, like he's like, "We accept any religion," but he just, like, uses any religion that helps him in that moment. And his empress is like, "Yeah, you can't just be using any religion that serves you in the moment, you know?" But so I'm gonna pull I just had to preface that, but I'm gonna be using the Buddhist card, so I'll be pulling
Yeah.
that out. Which is there is suffering, there is a way out. And guess what it is? Finding the balance and harmony. There's the Eightfold Path. There's like different ways to get there, but really at the end of the day, it's telling you to balance the internal masculine and feminine energy,
Mm,
honestly. And even in alchemy, right? It's the bride's chamber. People think the bride's chamber and the consummation is men and women coming together. It can be, and that's part of it, but it's really the consummation of yourself internally to consummate and marry the sacred feminine and masculine energy inside yourself,
yes.
which is like, yeah. And then once you're whole, perfect, you already are whole, perfect, and complete. But once you have unlearned all of the trash that they've taught us over time, and you realize how powerful you are and magnificent you are as a human being, and you come to that wholeness within yourself, then I think it's good for you to be in relationship. But I think that's why we're so out of whack with relationships. And it's funny, I just see all the time people are like, oh, dating at this age is hard, people are divorcing left and right, no one stays together. I'm like, yeah, And a lot of it's because no one's doing the work. You know, they
Exactly.
wanna fill the void of what they feel is missing. So, for instance, you know, if you're feeling like you're missing that nurturing side, you wanna fill it with the feminine energy of a woman, and the reality is can you even give yourself that nurturing? Can
Mm,
you even allow yourself? Because if you can't even give it to yourself, how is someone else gonna give it to you? You're gonna reject it, or you're not gonna even think of it sacred, or you're not gonna be grateful for it. You're gonna turn it away. You're gonna or, you know, you're not gonna be grateful for it. And we see that a lot. "Oh, he just was not grateful anymore. I was doing all this stuff and then the woman leaves and the guy's going like, "What the hell happened? I didn't realize how much she does." Well, yeah, because you yourself weren't healed internally for the sacred feminine. You were using her to fill a void, not the way it should work.
yeah.
And having people feel and that's why I like the twin flame theory, because if you are a twin flame, it's not like that at all. In fact, it's the opposite.
It helps you,
It
yeah,
forces you to
heal
look at your damn selves.
and integrate, and right, but it is the alchemical stages, and it is that sacred marriage within that
Mhm.
comes from the twin flame journey, and that's just beautiful because, like I said earlier, then from, like you said, that whole integrated space, like, now it's more of the I am presence and this authentic soul,
Mhm.
rather than all these wounded ego, aspects that are navigating.
Yep, yep. And see, and then let's look at this. It says, I wanted to read what you're saying. That's me, just work and provide, keep going. I've been working with a bad knee for 3 years. See, there you go. That right there to me tells me, well, I don't know. My question would be like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you nurturing yourself? Or are you being what society has done to us? And I'm not sure where you are, Rockwell, or you can say where you are if you want to or not. I'm assuming you're in the Western world. You may or may not be. But I can tell you right now that if you're what I see with men in the Western world is, "Oh, I'm not gonna go to the doctor. Oh, I'll just work through
Yeah,
it." And that is toxic to yourself. That
yeah.
is a wounded masculine to yourself because maybe you weren't taught, okay, to do that. Florida, I think you told us, were you on last time? You might have told us last time. And so are you taking care of yourself? Are you learning to nurture yourself? Are you learning to heal yourself? Or are you just going to keep going and going and going? Remember that, yes, I don't trust the medical system. I get that. I get that. But I mean, in terms of like finding a way to help mitigate the pain or to support you in your healing process.
Mm.
You know, those are things that, you know, that's a feminine thing to allow
Holistic
yourself to heal, to
medicine.
take to take rest, to, you know, not so much like, "Oh," and see, here's where society gives it a bad rap. "Oh, well, then you're just lazy, you're just this, you're just that," and that's not very nurturing. Like, how the hell do we expect men to understand what nurturing is if they don't even know how to nurture themselves? They don't even have a clue.
Yeah, then it's just a voice of judgment. You're just beating yourself up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, stuck in negative energy, and that becomes your reality. Because then, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
tough cycle to break.
It's a tough cycle to break, and I don't know how the Western world is, you know, I think what we're seeing now as a result of this, and this is kind of like my foresight, not saying it's true, but how I see the world, is that we have this confusion of genders now. I think the children are confused. They're not sure what they wanna be.
Yeah, and
And I
again,
don't oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
because it's not meant to be like gender of the body. It's the energy that they feel, and one is
Right.
more dominant than the other. And yeah, again, coming back to like the evolution of consciousness, and things are just going to keep changing. That's for sure.
And I think they're confused. They
Yeah.
don't know what they wanna be. And I mean in terms of gender. I'm
Yeah.
saying gender because we are sort of brought into this world. We don't choose if oh, well, there's theories that say we do choose what gender we wanna be, okay? But I'm gonna just say we don't choose. We just come in as like, it's a girl, it's a boy, you know? And in that, right, we embody both energies, but in gender right? In order for the human species to continue, there was a reason why men and women came into the world as men and women and not as one whole unit. And that's because,
Protagonist, yeah.
yeah, to continue the race, right? But if people are not wanting to take on or ascribe to the gender that they came into the world as, then the human population will decline because they're not wanting children or they're changing their sex, all that kind of stuff. Now we can go into like, well, this is the mindset, what that means, all that kind of stuff. But if we had this healthy idea of the balance internally, the human species, I believe, would be healthy enough to say we want to continue to procreate. We want to continue to expand, the human race. But at this point, that's not what's happening, right? Most people are like, I don't even want to have children, me
Yeah.
being one of those.
Yeah.
Or, I'm going to change my sex altogether, or I'm just going to do this or that. And there's like this confusion about, well, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know because we haven't been taught how to heal or what a healthy feminine would look like. What does a healthy masculine look like? We're so far away from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're we're just like totally on the extremes at this point. And then we have these gender wars that that it's like I said, I was agreeing with that dude on Facebook, and he was so enraged he couldn't see back past his own fury that he thought that I was not agreeing with him. I said, yeah, you want to fight with women so badly this that you can't even see there's a woman on your side. I mean,
Yeah. People
which
get
is just
blinded by it, that's for sure.
uh-huh. Yeah, by like this is a war, like I'm coming at him as I'm like, I'm not here to fight a war or rage war against you. The gender wars and all that. That's not what I'm here for. Um, if anything, I'm here to heal myself, right? So that I can walk this world as a healed feminine and masculine energy.
Yes.
You know, I think I'm opposite of you, very masculine. I mean, I've always had to protect myself. I had to learn how to over exercise that muscle and didn't know how to rest, didn't know how to nurture myself, didn't know how to stop, didn't know, you know, I was everything for myself. So I had to protect myself. Right. And this goes back from childhood, right? Because if you go back to childhood, it's like I lived in a very violent, I feel like a very toxic place,
Yeah.
with it was crazy. I had to fend for myself and have a choice but to be that. My father, I've talked about, was very, very toxic. He was violent. He was, I had no place for tears. It was like it was almost like he was telling me to man up.
Yeah,
That was how I was raised. So I didn't cry for the longest time. And every time I'd cry, I would have to swallow it down, and I had strep throat. I had all these throat chakra issues and stuff like that because I couldn't cry. So I experienced that and I'm learning to heal what that looks like for me. I'm learning how to relax, which is not easy for me. I hated taking baths. I hated baths when I was little. I was like, get me in the shower, in and out, done.
yeah.
You know, my sister's total opposite, right? She was more hanging out with my mom, so she's like, "Oh, this, that." So I'm learning how to just to relax. It's taken me so long to figure that out.
Yeah.
So, I always tell it like a man, this is why I don't have a man in my life. Why? Because they have to be more masculine than me. And I don't know that there's a man that are more masculine than me. It's kind of sad. But if I did find a healthy masculine that was more masculine than me and I felt safe, I would naturally fall into my feminine state of being. I would,
Absolutely,
because I'd feel safe. I
absolutely.
don't feel safe. That's the problem. Okay. So men might want to know, want to understand, I don't feel safe. There is not a man out there that why? Because maybe because of my daddy issues, I don't know, but I have yet to experience what that feels like, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So that's not my story, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist, right? Um, but then there's these walls that you put up, right? Because you're like, "Oh, if I don't protect myself, they're not gonna protect me. So I gotta do it for myself." So no, 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 I take kung fu, I don't do guns. I'm like, I know guns can outdo a weapon or whatever, but when your bullets run out, you better be careful. Kidding. Um, let's see, can't change genders anyway. Biologic, yeah, can interchange. Correct.
But a gun, though, is symbolically, like, the masculine's role manifested. Like,
Yes, true.
men managed to rarely create this image of themselves through guns.
That's true because it's like
Yeah.
they shoot out sperms and they shoot out bullets. I
Alright, I
didn't
wasn't thinking
think
that,
about
but okay. Oh, goodness.
that
You just took it to a whole new level now, like
one. But it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
Summer
like,
playing.
we give the sperm for life and we will take it away through a bullet. Like, okay, that's great.
Oh
Thanks.
god. Oh, man.
No. Oh my God. Yeah, I hope you're laughing. I am kind of hilarious. No, I'm just kidding. I always tell my sister, I'm funny to myself. And she's like, "You're not funny." I'm like, "Yes, I am."
I'm always making
She's like,
myself laugh.
"I know, me too." She's like, "You're the only one laughing." But I feel like other people laugh at my stuff. I don't know if I could be a stand-up comedian, but I
Yeah, I
think I
get
could.
it.
I think I'm funny. I'm pretty witty sometimes, only sometimes. Um, but yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. They have, because that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
It is kinda crazy.
It's how they protect, right? That's how they feel
Mhm.
safe, how they're big weapons and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they've had to I guess it's had to magnify now that you God, a lot of things are clicking right now, so I'm like, they had to protect, and it got bigger and bigger and more out of control because, well, I think some people were trying to protect what they currently had, which is maybe some land and properties that they, quote, unquote, felt like they owned, and then because they couldn't protect it, they built bigger weapons, but also there were people who were like, "I want more than what I have too." So that was another thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I'm going to expand beyond these walls. It's funny because I am like I told you, I'm watching that series Marco Polo, and I'm like, wow, like there's just it's never enough. You know what I mean? It's always like
Right.
more.
No.
I'm like, why? Just be peaceful with you have a shit ton of land. Like, what do you want more empires for? Like, come on. How many empires can you possibly have? You know, you can't hold on to it all anyway. So, but yeah, I think that that makes total sense that they use that for protection and then it just got bigger and out of control. And before you knew it, it was like weapons that can annihilate an entire planet, which is kind of not good. I mean, that's very toxic. That's like the ultimate toxicity, if you will, I think.
Yeah.
At its ultimate high. Like, oh, we have this bomb that we could just explode. And I think they were afraid of their own self because nobody's really used those bombs. We've never got to that particular point, right? Because they're just like, oh, everyone will suffer. Well, we already
Yeah.
do, but now we're really going to put everyone under this
Just fear
suffering.
tactics, North Korea, they're gonna shoot missiles at us, so right? Just a way to kind of keep people
Keep
in
your
line.
sperm away from us. Just kidding. Sorry.
No. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Definitely toxic energy
So
then.
that's what I'm going to think about from now on. Do
That's
not shoot your sperm over here. We do not want it. It is not
oh
welcome.
my god. Oh my
Thank
god.
God there's adults that listen to us. I don't think children are listening to this at all.
Oh gosh.
I have to put into comedy that way though, because it's like if I don't, I can get way too serious about this stuff. And then before you know it, it's like my mom and everybody's like, Natalie, you can't
Yeah.
save the world. And I'm like, I know, I'm just trying to save myself. It's enough. But yeah, that's kind of like how it is. Oh my gosh, I just never thought of it that way, Pam.
Ah, I'm glad I get helped you with the aha moment.
You help you help me put something that's, like, so heavy into something that's comical, which is
Yeah.
kinda nice, I guess, yeah. I'm
No,
like,
I had the realization when I was seeing this guy, and yeah, he has tons and tons of guns, and he was just so happy to, like, show me, and was like, yeah. And I kind of was watching him and observing and seeing all of his joy, and then kind of realized, like, wow, this is like symbolically like, just this masculine energy like manifested into a physical materialistic form. Just like I
mhm,
feel like with women or the feminine, right? It's art. It's that creative, clay or
uh-huh,
paintings or whatnot. It's that kind of
uh-huh.
beauty through music or
But
song or
ours don't
dance.
seem to harm. Which ones have we done to harm humanity? It's all clay. We
Ugh,
built pottery.
right?
Right?
I don't know. I feel
So
like at this point, though, we can't change the way it's
way it's
structured.
structured.
So all we can do is observe it, notice our role in it, again, do the healing work. Because yeah, it's got its own purpose through consciousness.
No, but that is a good question. On a larger scale, if we thought about because if we say that masculine's like the most wounded, I don't want to just say toxic, but the way that it manifests the most wounded is through a bomb, right? Because that's probably like the ultimate thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe there's more. I don't know. But I'd say the a bomb, right? A U bomb, what Oppenheimer created. I want to go see that movie, by the way. And by the way, I'm from New Mexico, so I, this is where it all starts. So I'm kind of like, "Ugh, I should probably get out of here." No, but
Okay.
anyway, so we see Oppenheimer. That's kind of like the ultimate wounded masculine. What would be the ultimate wounded feminine? What would that show up as? Would you say the particle accelerator opening these holes that I don't know if it really does that, but trying to open these portals?
Oh yeah. Yeah, possibly. Because with the feminine, I feel like right creator and destroyer. So when you think
Uh-huh.
about like, goddess Kali,
Uh-huh.
was a very dark feminine, right? Because here we are also, if you want to really look at it, the wounded part is going to be the shadow. It's going to be the dark. So if you look at the gods and the goddesses, the dark compared to the more like conscious, I guess, like enlightened one.
Enlightened one.
But yeah, it's like I could just kill and destroy, right? Like
Right? Like
whatever I
whatever I
created and I
create.
birthed, I could wipe out and start over.
Yeah, and it's funny because at CERN, Kali is the statue that's out front. I think it's Kali. Yeah, it is. It's Kali.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. So there you go. Both end up in total annihilation. I
Right.
don't think we want that as humans. I think we want to survive. And we're in a unique situation as humans. And my hope is that people can remember that. Like we have this beautiful opportunity to experience life and even be inquisitive about it and communicate what we're seeing and even co-participate with consciousness and morphing it and shaping it and all these things
Mm,
that we're part of this narrative and we know it, which is kind of cool. And we have this beautiful place that we can be in, yet I think people disconnect from that, and it's in not rightfully so, but I'd say it was intentionally so,
yeah,
that the narrative was to keep us away from realizing our potential, realizing our power, realizing
absolutely.
we are so magnificent as creatures, but yet we've become so overly wounded, and the wounds of our feminine and masculine energy internally, not externally, not in gender, but I think if we heal that, and I think with the twin flame theory as well, I think if we were able to heal and consummate the sacred feminine and masculine internally and come to that wholeness, that we would see the rise of empires again. are the
Yes,
rising kings and queens, right?
and that's what's happening or will
yeah,
happen. That's where we're
yeah,
headed.
yeah, and we need to
Yes.
because it's become so lopsided at this
Yeah.
point, and
So I have done a lot of the work.
Mhm.
Like I have obviously gone through all of those stages and I am in my union with myself and all of that. And I channel, like I definitely do a lot of journaling and do like go into altered states of consciousness. And after my recent experience with the ayahuasca and where I was at and what I was questioning, I had a massive Kundalini awakening. And I was channeling and writing for hours in my journal. And I went up the chakras, starting at the root all the way to the crown from the feminine perspective. And then I went up them through the masculine perspective. And then it kind of merged and integrated. And I really, and in that channeling, my feminine was talking about like reclaiming, the crown, reclaiming the land, reclaiming the power. And then as my masculine was going like through that churn, same thing. It was like this opposite, but this synchronicity, because he is like, we are going to reclaim the land. We are going to be like that, what they took from us. We are going to rise back and integrate and create again and reclaim that. And I absolutely believe that's part of the evolution of consciousness and where we're going as a collective. We're all just on different stages depending on like our awakening processes, as well as our intentional. If you do the shadow work, if you can sit with it and do it every day or when it arises, you're going to get through it much easier than someone who runs from the healing process because it's too painful. And that's why about causing our own suffering, like, yeah, there's a lot in the world that we're experiencing, but we can change that one by one by doing the healing for ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely agree with that statement about being a feminine and a masculine in leadership and empowered together from this like very healthy state of the sacred, because there's no intimidation, right? There's no power control. There's no struggle. There's no, like, it's now I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel safe to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is going to be a huge aspect. If you can't get comfortable with vulnerability, then you are going to suffer. You are going to have challenges. Um, so I absolutely agree. Like, that is where these energies are headed in their integration and their union.
Yeah, well, I think vulnerability's been stifled, that's why, too. It's
Yeah.
like trying to come out because, you know, the vulnerability ended up being a mockery or a joke.
Yeah.
And, in the Western world again, it's like you can't be vulnerable, you can't do this, you can't. The reality is that now people are looking for vulnerability and authenticity. People are tired of the fake shit, and that's really, to me, becomes this political rhetoric, I don't deal with politics at all. I mean, you have to. I'm not going to say it all, but I don't get into political
No,
narratives
I don't.
because all of it is just fancy language, and whoever has the most fancy
Control.
language and the best
Yeah.
distinctions
Control, manipulation
in words,
for their
and
agenda.
then they win. Then they
Yeah.
win, right?
No, break out of the
So,
matrix. Break out.
yes, beyond the political narrative, beyond that, there's this beautiful, flow and ebb and flow of life because everybody, it's funny, you kinda see you we use I like spiral dynamics, the easiest way to describe what's happening, right? Where you have this political kind of blue, if you equate it to blue, which they do, is that bureaucratic, this kinda like, how do we there's these rules, there's this oneness, the da da da. You kinda move to this capitalist idea where you're still playing politics as, I think a capitalist because the government has so much control over what's happening right now that money then goes to these big corporations and they sway the political arena and agenda and narrative, and they're paying off these people so that it can be towards their way of thinking. So, and it's funny because my friend Brandon's talk about this all the time, but if you move up the ladder, you're getting into something that's like equitable. Let's talk about equity. That's still political. Like, you still have to go through the political arena. But if you hit yellow in spiral dynamics, which is where I'm trying to operate from that perspective, because to me, what's needed is for us to include all those things, not act as though they don't exist, but to include them and then
Yes.
transcend them so that we can then start to evolve consciousness. People are saying, well, we're evolving consciousness and this and that. I'm like, I don't know if people know what they're talking about. Um, and it's fine. They are where they are, right? It's just that I think people use these fancy words and don't really understand what that means, right? And if we looked at consciousness, and it would be based on your definition of consciousness, right? But I feel like we're at that place of what does it, which is a yellow, which is very inquisitive. It's not really having an answer because at this point, nobody has an answer about what the hell's to come. We're all just trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Like, we're waking up from this big ass illusion and we're going like, okay, now what? Where do we go from here? It's very uncomfortable to be at that place. So if you look at spiral dynamics, kind of look at yellow, which is kind of the next tier where we're questioning. We don't necessarily have an answer. I think we're just questioning, how do we heal? How do we begin to understand what kind of weird ass illusion we just lived through?
Yeah.
The politics, the capital, the everything. You're not even, and it's not that you're judging it because it's a part of you. It's a part of our narrative. Historically, it is part of what we've done, but now we've come to this point where we've created this complex thing, right? Let's go back to the simple complex that you were talking about. And it's like we're at this point where we have to re-question everything because everybody's like, whoa, well, like, that was not the result we were aiming for. We have missed the mark completely.
Yeah.
I think our forefathers are like, what the hell
Yeah.
happened? But I don't know if that's not where we were aiming. And I think it just kind of just went somewhere else. And so now, I think as a society, especially the Western world, we're looking at it going like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think that was what we were trying to create. Um, but we're under this, like, American dream. We're dreaming this dream that we're like waking up from and going like, well, that was a weird dream. I don't know if that's really where we want to head
Right.
anymore. And we're questioning. Those individuals are the people we talk to. Those ones that are kind of going like, we've got to change something here. But guess what? Those individuals are the ones that are going to do the work to heal the sacred feminine and masculine, because that's where the answers are, right? In healing that, where new empires rise or new kingdoms arise, or however you want to call them, but from a place of healed, like healing. And then maybe we go through the narrative again. Maybe it's a healed, maybe we start these tiny communities, right? And we're rising and all this. And then we go through the dark ages and then we arise these new empires. And then maybe we go through the story all over again. Who knows? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then we fall asleep again and we start fighting wars again. And we're like, this is my property. And we do the same shit over and over. Who knows? But I think we're all starting with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're at. So think of that when you're thinking of this podcast. That's what it's kind of about. It's those individuals who are like, I'm lost. I'm confused. I don't know what's next. Guess what? Nobody knows what's next. And the second someone tells you they know what's next, run the opposite direction because nobody knows. I can tell you this. They don't know. We're having to create this next. We are the ones creating and paving the way for what's next. We don't know what's
Mm.
next. We don't have a clue. And we know that what we're doing isn't working. And I know that people are like, now what do we do to pivot? Um, and I think, Clara Graves said this with spiral dynamics, the more that we try to solve the problems, the more complex the problems become. And so it just becomes this spiral. I think it's just be simple. Get back to simplicity, which is like, I don't know, we want to purchase land. We want to have a place that's off the grid that, can operate on its own and get back to the simple basics where you wake up in the morning and you're with the stars at night and you're doing ceremony and you're connecting with earth and you're working together to support each other, like that kind of thing. Now, I don't know, maybe it's a wish, maybe my mind, whatever.
No, I think that's part of the
But
collective thoughts. People are trying to live in smaller communities where they can help each other live sustainably off the land, have RVs or whatever, even so they don't have roots. Yeah.
Mhm, 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 like
Yeah,
nomads, like we were
exactly.
before, kind of
I think
nomadic.
people are tired of government.
So
I think they're really just tired of the government control, and people are waking up to that. They're waking up to the consumerism and the capitalism that's just we're enchained and enslaved to. And like that's the structure that really needs to change.
mhm. Yeah, and I think with that, how this circles back into sacred feminine masculine is that once we do the healing internally with our own energies of masculine and feminine energy, we really work, and like Pam kept saying, be aware, just kind of looking at it, right? And understanding, like if you see someone who's, being very controlling, ask yourself, how am I controlling? And why? Where did that idea come from? Why do I feel the need to control? You know what I mean? Now, protection and control, two different things. There's a distinction between the two, right?
Yeah.
Protecting is saying, you step over my boundaries and I'm going to protect myself. You know my boundary, right? Controlling's like, I'm going to tell you what your boundaries are and you're going to follow what I tell you. Totally different
Yeah.
narrative,
It's the
completely
difference
different.
between a good defense
So,
and offense.
exactly, exactly. So, yes. So, understanding that and understanding how these operate internally inside of you and healing that. If you have a lot of yin, maybe you need some more yang. If you have a lot of yang, maybe you need some more yin. And what does that even feel like? How do you experience that? How do you, Rock, you were talking about not resting. How do you find more rest when you need it and allow yourself to rest? Where does that come in? Do you even feel safe enough to rest? Right. And that's where the sacred feminine comes in. That's where it's like, women, if they took on that role, if you were in a marriage, would say, it's okay. I'm going to nurture you. There's nothing wrong with being hurt. I want to help you through this process. You can heal so you can get back to feeling better. So you can get back to, being that protector you want to be. Not wounded, but also healed, right, at the same time, so it's the same
Mm,
thing, but you've gotta be willing to give that to yourself.
yeah.
It's not something that someone can just give to you, you have to be willing to accept that and give it to
Yeah.
yourself,
Because everybody's
and
got
that's being
wounds
vulnerable.
and they can only meet you as far
For
as they've healed themselves.
That's right. So it's looking at those things, right? And that's for all masculine, feminine, someone like me is totally overly masculine, then it's like, yeah, how do I find that grace for myself? How do I nurture myself? Because I'm so like, oh, I got to do this, A, B, C, like a drill sergeant,
Mm,
and then opposite end where the feminine is like, okay, you've rested, you've got creative, now you got to get to business. Like you've got to protect and support yourself in that protection as
mm,
well. Getting up and making things happen. You know what I mean? Moving forward, finding out what your goals are in that. So there's that balance between the
yeah,
two.
definitely.
So yeah. So that is all I have to do. We went kind of long. Pam, do you have anything else to say?
Not that I can think of. Not really. I think yeah, it was a good it was a good rundown.
Yes. So we appreciate you guys showing up. Thanks
Absolutely.
for tuning
Yeah,
in.
thank
Just
you.
know that like with your friends, you can share this podcast with them. But also know that, we're here. We're doing the work. We are the work. We are in the process. We are authentic. We are going to tell you like it is, like, no hold backs. But we appreciate you showing up for yourself. And, we both hope that I'm speaking on behalf of
Yeah,
you,
no,
Pam.
that's fine.
We hope that you guys will go out there and really just do the work for yourself,
Yeah, absolutely.
We need more humans. doing this work. It can't, there's no
Yep.
everybody. If we could get the entire
Right.
planet to do this work,
Follow your
we'd be in
triggers.
a much
I guess that's my last
I
thing.
know,
Follow your triggers. It will lead to the wounds. It will show you what needs to be
I know,
healed.
I know those triggers, I tell
Yeah.
you.
Don't
That's the hardest. There's no way out but through,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
well, guess what? We do the work. So if Pam and I can do the work, you could do the work.
Yeah,
Promise. It's scary. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's rewarding in the end, and
it truly is.
it's healing.
Yeah,
It's
and
healing.
it's a calling. It's
So
definitely a calling. It's gonna keep coming for you if it's meant to if it's meant to be your journey in this lifetime that you signed up for. It's just the ego that gets in the way.
that's funny. They're gonna hear that at night. It's coming
It
for
is.
you.
It's coming for you.
You cannot hide from this, people who have been called to do something magnificent in your life. So you better just listen. Because as much as you run, it's gonna chase
Yeah,
you, and you can't escape it, you know what I mean? So work on healing yourself, just we're here if you guys need support, so, reach out to us. We also will be doing some private, stuff. I think what we're gonna focus on is abundance consciousness, and that will be, done on Patreon, I believe, but we'll let you know when it is. They will be exclusive for those who wanna be a part of it. We will be working towards helping people understand abundance consciousness. What does that even mean, and how do we tap into that? And I can tell you, as a little hint, that abundance consciousness has nothing to do with materialism, and I can tell you this, our greatest asset that we have is time. And how we are able to manifest more or less of it is how you will become abundant, and have more of that time to do what you love. So we'll be doing that pretty soon, but we'll keep you posted on that. And I think that's pretty much
yeah.
it. You can go to Women of Consciousness. We're on Facebook. If you'd like to do Women of Consciousness, you can find us there. We are on Instagram as well, and you guys can find us there as well.
So
And
much
I
more to
think that's it.
come.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so much more to come. We love you guys. Have a fantastic
Yep.
day.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.